And by God, there's going to be a Game 7 of Penguins and the Capitals. Maybe the way it should be. This guy not getting what did you want? And you're like, we got to go to a practice over in like Kitchener or Scarborough. There was some.
Yeah, it was.
Etobicoke. It was Etobicoke is where it was,
yeah,
right?
It was. Yeah, exactly. Etobicoke. Yep. It was one of those suburban Toronto cities, but that turned out to be the only one. And then they had the opportunity to do so between games 2 and 3 in Pittsburgh as well, and it was actually on our itinerary that way. But once they won game 3 and went into overtime, they changed course and gave the guys a total day off instead, which was totally fine with the rest of us too. So it's pretty fluid, especially this time of year. Rest is so much more important than practice. You usually maybe you make the practices mandatory and the morning skates optional, or as has been in the Caps case, a little bit of the opposite. They had a couple of practices and they made morning skates optional from time to time, though the morning skate was mandatory before Saturday's game in Washington. So, like I said, it's pretty fluid. It's a decision that the coaching staff generally. You get out of the rink late at night. You'll get on the plane and they'll huddle up quick and they'll pass the word on to the media relations crew, and then they'll start to disseminate that information to the players and via social media and stuff, so that everybody knows what's up for the next day.
How many years for you at WashingtonCaps.com, Mike?
Well, at Caps.com since '99, covering the team since the start of the 95-96 season.
All right, man, you've seen it all. What say you about this? I mean, if I said to you, I've missed this week, I've been on the moon, tell me a little bit about Caps Penguins this week. And there's going to be a Game 7. I mean, it feels like ancient history now that Crosby took the hit from Niskanen, right? It feels like it was about a month ago. It was a week ago.
It's crazy, how much a playoff series and a team season can change in such a short period of time. You can be going along swimmingly, and if you lose 2 games in a row, all of a sudden you're season in danger. And that's kind of what happened to the Caps, really, when they lost the first 2 games of this series at home. All of a sudden you're chasing the series. You lose 2 games at home, you've got to win two games on the road just to get the home ice advantage back. So they go into Pittsburgh and get the game 3, but obviously, like you said, Crosby gets hurt in that game. Caps managed to win it anyway. Crosby's not playing game 4, so now this is a golden opportunity for Washington to tie this series up. Unfortunately, they did not play well at all in game 4, and their best players were, I don't know if I would say invisible, but they definitely lacked some luster in that contest, and turns out to be a 3-2 loss, and now all your margin for error is gone. You're coming home, and Pittsburgh, the defending Cup champions, they have a chance to close out the series. So Saturday night in Washington is Game 5, and after 40 minutes, the Caps were playing pretty well. I think they were out shooting the Penguins 18-10. Pence didn't have much going on. They did score a power play goal. Caps made one mistake, and it wound up in the back of their net. So here you are now in a must-win game, down a goal, heading into the third period. Pittsburgh's 20 minutes away from moving on. Caps are 20 minutes away from a golf course. And, in a few minutes, everything changes. The Caps scored 3 times in less than 5 minutes. This after not being able to score 3 times in any previous 60 minutes of the first 4 games of the series. The only time they scored 3, the third one came in overtime. So I don't think too many people saw that coming. But they pulled it together and wound up winning game 5 to force game 6 on Monday in Pittsburgh. And then, that Nestor, to me, was such a unique opportunity for the Capitals. Last year in game 6, lost in Pittsburgh in overtime, fell down 3-0 in that game, stormed back and tied it with 3 goals in the last 21 minutes to force overtime, and then lost in overtime. So Their season ended prematurely in their minds. They were devastated by that defeat. I think they all, to a man, thought they could get that series back to Washington for a Game 7 and win it and possibly go on to win the Cup as Pittsburgh did. So it really, really stuck in their craw all summer that they had lost that series to the Penguins, and the Penguins went on to win the Cup. And I think it motivated them throughout the season. So now, all of a sudden, almost a year later to the day, I mean, to the point where winning Game 5 at home in both series took place minutes after the end of the Kentucky Derby. It's kind of eerie how this.
It's like the pictures are showing up on my Facebook timeline as 1 year ago today, or right? I mean,
yeah, it's kind of crazy, you know. So they got a do-over, and I called it a do or die do-over. It's one of those things where it's a rarity in sports where virtually 90% of the roster on both sides are the same, and these guys who had this sort of stuck, like I said, stuck in their craw for 365 days, now had a chance to sort of write a better ending. And that's exactly what they did in Game 6 with just a thoroughly dominant performance over Pittsburgh in their own building. And now, you're going into Game 7, and I don't know, there's a difference of opinion as to whether momentum carries from one game to another. I think we're in for a heck of a Game 7 on Wednesday. Whether you believe in the momentum carrying over or not, Pittsburgh's a proud team. They're the defending champs. They're not going down easy. Whether you believe the Caps can bottle up the way they played in the last 4 periods, they scored 8 straight goals in this series at one point. What has been a really tight series before that, and they're clearly frustrating the Penguins. But again, can they do that for 60 more minutes? I think, there are cases to be made for both sides. And, we live for Game 7s in the NHL. It's great theater, so it should be something. And I would bet that the TV ratings for this one will be pretty high up. I saw that even just the Game 5 was one of the most highly watched non-Game 7 playoff games in the last couple of decades. So Caps and Penguins is definitely a marquee matchup. But when you throw in a Game 7 and you got guys like Crosby and Malkin and Kessel and Ovechkin and Backstrom and Kuznetsov, I think it's going to be destination viewing for a lot of people.
He is Vogue's Caps out on Twitter. Mike Vogel covers the Caps at WashingtonCaps.com. And look, I know you work for the team and like all this and that, and the criticism side is different if you're some knucklehead in Pittsburgh going after Trotz last week, like that clown did up there, calling him classless and all of that stuff, and bringing out the thug word and all that. But boy, I've talked to Dougie McLean the other day about this bumpy ride in the playoffs, and it's always a bumpy ride when you're the Caps. I mean, it's not like LeBron where you just go out and beat everybody 4 in a row and sit around and file your nails waiting for the other series to end. Trotz has really had to make some tough coaching, in a bubble kind of decision to pull a goaltender down 3-1 after the second period in Game 2 that's taken him everywhere he's gone, and then watch Braden Holtby rebound. That was controversial. And then, obviously, everything that's going on with Ovechkin here the last week. I mean, the question from everybody would be, well, where's number 8 in all of this? Maybe on Wednesday he'll answer that, but so far it's, you said invisible. He's certainly been quiet and moved around and shoved down onto the third line with great result for the team, but I don't know that it's been a great result for him.
Well, you look at it, he's got 5 goals in 12 games. You'd take that this time of year. That's basically, if you look at his playoff performance. Look, goals are harder to come by in the postseason. Most players don't produce in the playoffs to the degree that they do in the regular season on a points per game basis. That's why when you do see the rare guy like maybe a Justin Williams who produces at a higher rate in the postseason than he does during the regular season, I think that's the kind of guy you want. But Ovechkin's been year in and year out. This guy, I think he's unfairly criticized most of the time. I think I saw this note. I want to make sure I get this right. This is the 7th time he's scored 5 or more goals in a playoff year. No other active player has done that. There's 5 other guys out there, including guys like I think Patrick Kane and Patrick Sharp, Malkin, guys who've been in quite a few playoff runs who've had 5. But Ovechkin, despite never getting past the second round, has done it 7 times. So, and again this year, until Backstrom scored his 6th in the third period on Monday night, Ovechkin was tied for the team lead in goals. And going into Game 5, Ovechkin, Backstrom, and Kuznetsov were the only 3 forwards who had even scored for the Caps in the Pittsburgh series. So they had really been scuffling to get production outside of those 3 guys. And fortunately for them, since Barry moved the lines, changed the lines up, Burakovsky has come to the fore. P.J. Oshie has come to the fore, and those guys have played well. I just think, I don't look at it as a demotion. I mean, yeah, he's playing with 2 different line mates, but you can number those lines however you want. And when you look at it, the last game that Ovechkin played with Backstrom and Oshie, I think he finished around 19, little over 19 minutes. A game later, playing with Lars Eller and Tom Wilson, he wound up just under 18 minutes. So, yeah, the ice went down a little, but the Caps also had, I think, 1 or 2 fewer power plays. You even up the power plays, and the ice is almost the same then, because Ovi usually is on he'll often stay out for the full 2 minutes, but usually a minute and a half at least. So I don't see really any drop-off in his ice time. I just think what happened was they weren't generating, that Ovechkin, Backstrom, Oshie line was not generating quality offensive zone time and scoring chances to the degree that the Kuznetsov and Eller lines were. And by Barry just making that one little shuffle, and it's just flipping 2 guys, it's just flipping Burakovsky and Ovechkin, he basically spread that threat among 9 players rather than 6. So now you're creating more of a matchup problem for Pittsburgh, and you're ensuring that no matter who Pittsburgh has on the ice, defenseman-wise, they're going to be going up against either Ovechkin, Kuznetsov, or Backstrom. And as I had mentioned earlier, those were the 3 guys who were doing the scoring for this team early in this series. And as we've seen, it has presented some problems. They've outscored the Pens 9-4 in the series.
It's like pushing the right buttons. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know that anyone else would have done that. I mean, Doug McClain said, I wouldn't have benched Brayton Holtby down 3-1. I wouldn't have necessarily have moved Ovechkin around on a line at this tender point when you're down 3-1 in a series and you've lost the first 2 home games. But, I've seen this go on in NFL playoffs and in baseball playoffs. I mean, I know you're a baseball fan. You know what the bullpens have looked like in this postseason. The postseason doesn't look like January and February and March ever. Not on the ice, not off the ice, and certainly not from a physicality standpoint. And I think part of that's been toned down here in the last couple of hours of hockey. I sat down on the glass. I was expecting a lot more chippiness, toughness, all of that, but I think everybody's afraid of drawing a penalty here at this point in the series, right?
I mean, there's definitely some of that. You don't want to be the guy who makes the mistake, who costs your team the game. So I think there's definitely a little bit of, certainly early in the game, you'll see guys going out and, trying to set a tone and stuff. I think a lot of times you'll see more of that early. And even late last night, if you look at the last couple of minutes of the game, Pittsburgh scored a couple of garbage time 4-on-4 goals to, make the score look not as bad as it probably should have. But the Caps are out there finishing their checks. I mean, in a playoff series, every little thing you do is sort of a deposit that you put into a bank. Erosion occurs when you spend time in a team's end of the ice and you make their defensemen chase you around, and you have the puck most of the time. And when you're dumping the puck in their end and they have to go back and dig it out, and you got guys coming in on forecheck and hammering them, it takes a physical toll. And there's Trevor Daley, one of the Penguins' better puck-moving defensemen, was injured in Game 5, didn't play Game 6, and his absence was noticeable. Pittsburgh struggled to get the puck out of their own end all night. They only had 9 shots on net after 40 minutes of Game 6. So Dumoulin is a guy who most people believe is playing with some sort of injury for the Penguins. The Caps have really punished those guys over the course of 6 games. And generally what we've seen happen, I think, in these last 2 games is that 40 minutes of punishment leads to some offensive largesse come the final 20 minutes. 3 goals in the third period of both of the last 2 games. And I think it's that when you watch this team during the regular season, that was their MO. They might be up 2-1 after 40 minutes, but they would have worn you down and exacted a toll on you over those 40 minutes. And quite frequently, the final would be 5-1 or 5-2 because the other team just couldn't hang for those final 20 minutes. Caps would keep the Jets on and eventually roll to a big win. And to me, that's what they've gotten back to here in these last 2 games, Game 5 and Game 6.
All right, you're a true believer, right? I mean, they certainly can do this, and I was the one putting up on Thursday and Friday and Saturday leading up to Game 5. Caps in 7. Well, I'm still a true believer in all of this, and I certainly love the way they're trending and love the way they're playing. I think it's hard if you are a Caps fan, even though you've been up and down the mountain as you've been for 2 decades, as I've been for 3.5 decades at this point. This feels like a quality chance to move on. It feels like I will take my chances in a 1-game play for everything with the way they're playing right now on Wednesday night down at D.C.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, all this is an opportunity, and they've given it to themselves. They've created it for themselves. They've earned it, and they did it by winning those 2 games, 5 and 6. They've never beaten the Penguins 3 straight games in the playoffs at any point in their checkered history, and this is the 10th series they played against them. So, in order to win this series, they're going to have to do something they've never done before. Pittsburgh is 5-0 all time on the road in Game 7s, including a couple of wins here in D.C., most recently in 2009. So, you can look at some historical trends or nuggets and say, well, this might not be as easy as we think. Pittsburgh's a great hockey team. They've got a lot of great players. They're well coached. It's a great organization. They are the defending champs until someone takes them down. The Caps have that opportunity to do that on Wednesday night in Washington, and it's not going to be easy. These guys are. You listen to the voices coming out of the Pittsburgh room on Monday night. They're pretty sour about the way things went down, and I know they're going to show themselves much better on Wednesday than they did on Monday. So the Caps are probably going to have to be that much better than they were even on Monday, and I thought they were terrific. But TJ Oshie said it right after the game, I think we have another level that we can get to. Well, that's what it's going to take. To beat the best, you have to be at your best, and that's what it's going to take for these guys to finally get over the hump, beat the Penguins. And I think it would be kind of perfect. Look, the narrative is this team can't get past the second round, can't beat the Penguins in the playoffs, always coughs up playoff leads. Well, so if you win Game 7, you move to the third round of the playoffs, you beat the Penguins. Not only that, you become the team that turned the Penguins around from a 3-1 deficit, something they've been on the other end of a couple times over the years. So it's kind of perfect, but they still have to win the hockey game on Wednesday night to make it perfect.
Well, you're the one to write the book, having been around all this, and that would be an interesting part of the narrative. I chatted with Coach Trotz last week, and I said, I remember sitting in Denver, late on a 5-degree day and thinking the season is over, and Flacco threw the ball over the head of the defense. Jacoby Jones came down with it. 3 weeks later, there's a parade where everyone in the press box, every Raven fan had turned the game off and walked away and said it's over. And, as Yogi said, it ain't over till it's over, and we're going to find out on Wednesday night. Get some rest, folks. Hydrate yourself. We're going to need you on Wednesday night. O and T would not be foreign to either one of these organizations or to any of us in a Game 7. We've seen that, too, at the Garden. We hope for a better ending. Rest up, man. We'll see you on Wednesday night at the rink.
Sounds good, Nestor. Thanks for having me. Talk to you soon.
Vogue's Caps is the way to get to him. He is Mike Vogel. Hockey, baseball, Kerouac, Dylan. Every once in a while, even a little rock and roll in there as well. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world. We had some surprises out on social media, and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Snapchat and Instagram as Coach Tomlin and his wife joined me and my wife in Pittsburgh on the glass on Monday night. We had a legendary Game 6. Looking forward to Game 7 on Wednesday night, and I've got a big weekend around here as well. You can reach me anytime, nasty@WNST.net. You know, London, Green Bay, Nashville, they're all on sale right now. And, of course, everything we do is available in the morning newspaper at 7 a.m. That's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.